I'm Elizabeth Gould. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Codex, and we train the next generation of developers in Africa. I'm also on the executive committee of Silicon Cape, and I'm going to be the MC here tonight at our Tech Talks event on alternative and innovative financing.
Hi, my name is Subhash. I am the COO of Thunder Fund, and I'm hoping to find out more about what the market needs when fundraising or finding capital for their startups in Cape Town.
Hi, I'm Randolph Jorberg from the Bear House. I'm here tonight because we want to find out whether crowd investing is a viable way for the bear houses to grow to our goal of 25 bear houses around the country.
My name is Justin Feldman. I'm a student at Stellenbosch University, and I'm here to just learn a bit more about how to launch some technical development, technological developments mostly, just how to get some support and funding for the important projects that South Africa sort of needs. Yeah.
Hi, my name is Jason Siv. I'm from a company called MobiCred. I'm actually on the panel here tonight with a few other guys from a few different types of businesses. I am hoping to learn a few things about the tech industry.
Letohono Lomorudi here. I'm from the Sustainable Industrialist, and I'm here at the Silicon Valley event to learn more about the new technologies that go into waste management, more so the green economy, and the opportunities that are there within the green economy. I hope to learn more while I'm here.
Hi guys, I'm Elizabeth. For anybody who doesn't know me, I'm the guest MC tonight, so you guys are going to have to bear with me a little bit. But I am a proud member of Silicon Cape, and I run with the Students and Careers portfolio. I'm also the CEO and co-founder of Codex, which trains young developers in Africa. We're based here at Workshop 17. And I'm happy to be here tonight because I think this panel, especially as somebody, as you can hear, I am from New York, especially as somebody who is a transplant, I think that often people think that the way Silicon Valley does things and venture capital and the way that the rounds that you hear about on TechCrunch are the only way to get a startup off the ground. And what we're here to talk about tonight is a lot of different kinds of ways that startups in Silicon Cape ecosystem both have and haven't been successful and what they've learned. And I hope that, I'm looking forward to learning some stuff about it as well. So first I'm just going to give a little bit of a rundown on Silicon Cape and what we do. It was started in 2009 by two entrepreneurs here in Silicon Cape, Justin Stanford and Vinny Lingham, both of whom have now become angel investors and VCs in the space, which is awesome to see. Let's see what we've got here. So a couple of key facts and figures. We have about 10,000, just under 10,000 members and 40,000 Twitter followers. So we really have an awesome community that is growing, and we're really, really active. We're a nonprofit, but I don't know what to say about that. We really serve the community, and that's our goal. Our mission is to support entrepreneurs in the ecosystem, attract more talent here, and also to grow the brand both of Silicon Cape, entrepreneurs here, and also Cape Town as a growing international tech hub, which I'm psyched to see is really happening and has happened quite a lot in the last couple of years. Our missions specifically are around increasing access to resources through events like this for entrepreneurs and also supporters of the ecosystem, whether that's VCs, angels, corporates, support like legal and accounting. We'll hear from some of those people here tonight. Also to work with government to decrease red tape and make Cape Town and South Africa a more attractive place to have a startup and to grow the tech ecosystem. And then also to really, like I said, focus on growing Cape Town's profile as an international destination for tech and a great tech ecosystem. As I mentioned, all of these figures already, we have a really, really active community and have hundreds of people who come to our events, and we're always looking to grow it. There's a couple of things that we're doing right now. We have just put out a tender for a marketing agency to look at helping to grow the profile of Silicon Cape locally and within South Africa. So I believe that is closed, but we'll be announcing who those people are and getting more plans from that. And we're also looking for a head of marketing for Silicon Cape to serve on the executive committee. So anybody who's interested can come talk to any of the members who are here tonight. ExCo members, can you just raise your hand, stand up, everybody look around so that you know who they are. We're always looking for more people to become involved, and just come up to anybody at any time. What else do I need to say about that? One of the big focuses that we're trying to do is really grow Cape Town as an international destination. We're working with the city and various other partners to do that, and I think that that's something that we have a lot of potential to do in the next couple of years. We've just hired a new coordinator who's starting next month, so we're going to have more support for entrepreneurs in the ecosystem. We have a brand new website that we're going to be launching in the first quarter of next year that's going to have a ton of resources and access to documents and some of the stuff that we're going to be talking about here tonight. I wanted to welcome back Baratung, who is on our ExCo, and she just spent the last 6 weeks with Tech Women, a US-funded program in the States, and we're doing a lot more of marketing around Cape Town internationally. I myself just got back from Finland, and I was part of a Global Impact Accelerator program at Slush, which is a 15,000-person tech conference, so I got to chat up Silicon Cape there quite a lot. We also are going to be part of the Global Entrepreneurship Congress, which was started by President Obama. I think many of you may know that he was in Nairobi earlier this year. The next Congress that is happening starting in March of 2017 is actually happening in South Africa. So, I think that speaks to what the work is that we've done and the work of all of you guys building the tech ecosystem here. If you are a startup who wants to become featured, because that is one of our roles to showcase the talent here, then please fill out the profiler form on the website that we have now, and then you have a chance to actually be showcased to all of our social networks and stuff like that. Other focuses that we're going to start doing, we are going to do a collaborative events calendar with all the other players in the ecosystem starting in 2016. So you'll see on Silicon Cape's website not just our events, but the events of all the major players, and anybody who has events who wants to put them up on the site, we encourage you to become part of that. And that is all on my announcements. I'm now going to give you the agenda. So we're going to hear from a couple of startups, and we're excited tonight to have TIA, the Technology and Innovation Agency, here to talk about their work and what they do. And then we'll also hear from ThunderFund, and then we will have a panel discussion about alternative financing and innovative financing mechanisms that some of the startups in the ecosystem have used. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Pamela Baholo. Please come up. Thank you so much. We appreciate your being here, and we look forward to hearing about what TIA does for the tech ecosystem.
Thank you. How does it work? Good evening, Cape Town. My name is Pamela Baholo. I'm from a company called Technology Innovation Agency. This is a government entity. It started in 2010, technically, but it has been in existence for since 1998, I think, because they merged 7 entities, about 4 from Cape Town, mostly around the biotech sector, and also the innovation fund which was based in Pretoria at the NRF. I just wanted to tell you what we do. If you look at the funding ecosystem in South Africa, we are trying to address this gap here. This gap exists between your VCs and also between your early research. This is like your universities and also people who do R&D. We call this gap the innovation chasm. Currently, you will struggle actually to find people who are funding here. If you go to IDC, they'll tell you that your technology is very mature. Go and look for somebody who will de-risk your technology. So this is an important role that we are playing. Department of Trade and Industry used to have an instrument here called SPIRE, but I think they've discontinued that, so that leaves us from the government sector, as the only player in this space. So what do? We are trying to stimulate innovation. That is the mandate, actually. So we do that through funding. Currently, we have 3 funds. We have what we call the seed fund. This fund currently exists within the universities, all universities in South Africa, and also special partners from the private sector, like in Gauteng, we've got Innovation Hub. In Durban, we've got Smart Exchange. In Cape Town, I think we don't have a private institution open for the public, but I know Innovas in Stellenbosch, they are also managing the seed fund. We are not directly administering this fund, but its purpose is to actually help people do feasibility studies and also to develop early prototypes. The bulk of our funding is in this space. We use what we call technology readiness levels. This is a system that was developed by NASA, so we're using that to measure, to gauge progression of technology up to a point which we call pre-commercialization. We do not focus on commercialization, but we help you de-risk such that your VCs and early VCs can be interested in your technology. So our focus is on the tech. This is where most of the money is sitting, what we call Technology Development Fund. Its purpose basically is to take technology from pre-prototype, progressing, mature it up to a point where it can get interest of second round funders, Series A funders, that's what they will call it in the VC space. I don't want to talk about this, I think I've touched it. We also do not just funding, we have technology stations in most of what they used to call technicons. I think they are called universities of technologies. Even here in Western Cape, we do have. These technology stations are well equipped, actually. I saw one in the Val. They've got a 3D printer, titanium printer. These services, they are freely available to South Africans. If you want to prototype things, it's free. You can get in touch with these guys, even the one here in Cape Town, the Central Tech or something, I forgot its name. But they do have a very interesting machinery and platforms. We also have a very interesting program here, Innovation Skills Development Program. I think Karen can speak better about that. They've got global alliances here where I think they took a group of guys here in Cape Town to Sweden. Yes. It's part of the linkages that we have globally around building these people called, I think we call them technopreneurs. It's not just entrepreneurs, but it's entrepreneurs who are interested in developing innovation through technology. And by technology, we do not mean ICT only. We cover everything from mining to advanced manufacturing to biotechnology, agriculture, and everything. It's technology in general. We've got all the sectors covered in our funding ecosystem. Our instruments we use grants in the support side, but in our main funding, we use what they call conditional grants, but they're not conditional grants. They're actually soft loans. Loans which are not penalizing failure, but if you succeed, you have to pay back a portion so that we can fund other people. And then we also take equity where feasible. It's only on exceptional cases. There's one interesting company that was sold by TIA here in Cape Town. It was bought by a Swedish company, I think. Yes, I think it's called CAP or something. Yes, Capo Biotech, yes. That's one of our success stories that we normally brag about. There we had equity, but our interest is not to make money. It's just to have those returns to TIA so that we can fund other people who qualifies, basically anybody, but mostly we deal with companies, startups, science councils, higher education, and SMMEs. I'm not going to talk about the criteria, but if I can sum the criteria, what we are looking for disruptive technologies. And by disruption, I mean something that can displace incumbents in a way. I'm talking from the ICT side. We're looking for serious innovation, serious in the sense that it can even create new industries, if possible. So meaning our benchmark are not just local. We benchmark your technology globally. If we do patent searches, it's global patent searches. So if you say you have patent here in South Africa, we know that it's not that valuable. So we'll do IPTC and all of these searches to see that what you are talking about is indeed innovative according to our criteria. So basically, this is the technology readiness levels that we use. We take stuff from just pre-feasibility up to between 7 and 8. At level 8, we have limited support. This is what we call commercialization support. But here we actually help you. We ready you to be for follow-up funding. So would help you address the gaps that the VCs are seeing in your business. We close those gaps through limited funding so that it can be funded further. I think in a nutshell, this is TIA. Myself, I come from the ICT side. We are responsible for funding the ICT sector in South Africa. Cape Town happens to be one of the hotspots. We have an office here in Observatory. We have met some of the guys here trying to get people funded because now we're actually actively pursuing innovators out there. But the word is out. You can go to our website. You can engage us, learn more about us. Most people don't know that we exist, but this instrument exists here in South Africa. Thank you very much. I think my time is up. Thank you.
Thanks so much. I was wondering if I could ask you a question. Can I ask you a question? I wanted to ask a bit of a question around the timeline of what you were talking about and the funding patterns, because I think one of the things that entrepreneurs often face is that there's a very long time lag between when you can access government funding, when, of course, the world of technology is changing so quickly that if they can't access the funding now, they'll die.
A very interesting question. Actually, what we have realized based on our experience, time is actually a necessity. The longer it takes, I think it builds you up. I can make an example. The guy we funded, from our normal evaluation period, I think it's about 4 months to 8 months. But it depends more on the responses from the applicants. In most cases, they delay us because they are not sure about their revenue models, they're about business models and so forth. But what we have found, people always say, no, but technology is moving fast and so forth and so forth. But what we have found based on experience, actually the longer we delay, the more you find value in the maturation of your tech. Even your strategies that you adopt, you see that had we funded you in the first month, actually you would have failed this money. This is based on 2 cases, the guys that we're currently funding. I think it took about 8 months for the whole DD to be done. But on average, it's 4 to 6 to 8 months It's not that long. It's actually average globally. It's the same benchmark. All right. Takes time to develop. Startups, yes, but the technology. For you to build, like this guys, the Kappa case study that we're using, I think those guys, it took 15 years to develop that product. From research up to a point where you can say, I'm now exiting this transaction. So what happens in the ICT sector, there's a bit of impatience because people think that you can drop a concept today and tomorrow take it to market. 8 months. Yes. Mm-hmm. Yes. Yes. Yeah, so what we have done, we sort of trying to categorize technologies. So these emerging mobile social kind of technologies, which are more towards the commercial side. If you look at the TRL model that I used, those technologies, they are closer to the commercial. That's why people are impatient to commercialize, because you are too close to the market. If you are too early, probably you are closer to the sciences, closer to R&D. This is where we actually even appreciate you more, but we're not saying we are not interested in the guys who are seeking to commercialize early. But if you can develop your technology in 8 months and commercialize with no problems, I don't think TIA is a good instrument for you.
So would you say you're focused more on biotech and that kind of thing that has a long life cycle, as opposed to a company like Catherine's that is a music streaming service? Okay.
To give you some perspective, Kappa Bioscience had a whole suite of patents, and they took 9 years to build up a globally scalable business. So they were, by the time that they were exited, it was 9 years later. But when Paul and the team came to us, it was post-proof of concept. So it's a very different business. But also, we attended the TIA CEO forum in Cape Town recently, and TIA as a whole has made a massive commitment to decrease their assessment cycle for new applications, particularly in the early stage. So I think that exactly so, and even faster in some cases, especially with Sabri's TIA funding. Sabri's seed funding initiatives with TIA. So we're working very closely with them to really bring it down. So I think that might just give everyone a different perspective.
Thanks so much, Alex. Thank you very much. Thanks, appreciate it. Thanks, Pamela. Okay, next up I'm going to bring up Patrick Schofield of Thunder Fund. I think this is a really interesting business, and I've recently had quite a lot of experience when I was in Finland. So Thunder Fund, correct me if I'm wrong, but it's very much a crowdfunding platform like Kickstarter or Indiegogo, but it's a born and bred South African one. One of the things that I'm really interested to hear you speak about, I don't know if you have much to say to this, but one of the themes that I found when I was just in Helsinki at Slush was around equity crowdfunding as a different way of startups being able to fund the early stage of their business. And I've heard that you have some thoughts in this arena. So I'm going to turn it over to you. Thanks so much.
Great, thanks very much. Okay, let me... Okay, guys, yeah, thanks very much for welcoming me here tonight. Just checking, I'm not going to fall off. Yes, and I will be talking just now about some of the interesting developments we're having in the equity crowdfunding space, because that is, we have had some engagement there. But I'm here to chat initially a bit about the journey that it took from where I started out to how we ended up launching Thunder Fund, and then talking a bit more about the journey of Thunder Fund over the last couple of years and what it's meant. And part of that is funding ourselves, which has been entertaining. And as there's a number of people here from Thunder Fund itself, so they'll know about that as well. And then also building a funding model that is actually going to have significant impact in Africa. But firstly, why did we start Thunder Fund? From when I left university, I'd always want to get involved in stuff that would have a positive social impact on the world, but also followed a good business model. Those kind of things often don't really work too well together, but it's something that's become known as social entrepreneurship. So I built up something called Streetwires, wire and bead artists. You'll see wire and bead art all over South Africa now. And the idea there was to say, when you're working from the street, there's a bit of a grass ceiling. Not even glass, it's grass. When the weather's bad, your shop closes. And we thought, surely we can introduce good business principles to this and make a success of it. And from that, employ a whole bunch of artists and then increase the opportunities that they have. That, in essence, is what, if you look at that being replicated, that's what crowdfunding actually is. It's about bringing resources to bear with people who don't have that much, but by introducing them to a wider audience and getting them to work together, in that way, you actually will help them break through that grass ceiling. Streetwise went on to we've now trained over 1,200 artists, and it's like, I think it's, 12, 13 years old now. So that was a real example of something where you could create a very strong social impact and introduce a very good business model. But that brought me through over, that's now, I'm now in 20 years since I left university, actually maybe one or two more than that. But through Streetwise and through a number of other ventures that I started up, we came across two key things that were issues when people were trying to start businesses. One was access to capital, and as importantly, two was the skills that are required to actually run a business. And what we began to recognize in crowdfunding, I met this guy called Michael Norton. He's about 70, he's about 75 now. In the UK, he was one of the key guys behind the fund set up to implement the Millennium Goals in the UK. So they had a fund which had about £100 million to it. So significant amounts. But this guy, he's a 75-year-old with a 20-year-old's imagination and someone's brain and commitment. Extraordinary guy. And he spoke to me about community banking and the idea that by bringing many people together, you can create massive change. That is the basis of crowdfunding. And in essence, that's what's, from Michael's initial conversations, I began to see the power of what crowdfunding can do. Out of interest, would you connect this pile of rocks to a guy called Pulitzer? Does anyone know what this is? Put up your hand if you know what this is. 125,000 people in America came together to build that because it's got that on top of it. That was one of the most successful crowdfunding campaigns in history. The French donated that. The Americans had to build that, but they didn't have the money to do so. And Pulitzer, who was at that stage running a newspaper called The World, said, you know what, this statue was not donated to America by a bunch of French millionaires. It was donated to America by the French people. So this is tradesmen, shopkeepers, people on the street who actually came together and through giving small amounts donated this statue because they both had fought a battle for freedom about 10 years apart, and they wanted to give a gift to the American people. So what Pulitzer said is, I'm not going to ask the millionaires to come together to build this. We as Americans, as individuals, can get in there and we can make sure we raise the money for this extraordinary statue. 125,000 people came together. The average donation was less than $1 US. And they built it. That was early 1900s, I think. I don't remember when it actually was. But that is crowdfunding at its best. And remember, in those days, they didn't have internet and all that kind of stuff, but they were able to create something like that. It's an extraordinary story. In terms of crowdfunding, you can see the growth path has been quite extraordinary. This is from a crowdfunding report put together by Massolution. We're now at around 34 billion in 2015. Now, they've predicted that in 2016, in the startup space, crowdfunding will be greater as a percentage than venture capital in the startup space. Now, that is phenomenal. That's in 6 years. It's gone from almost nothing to a massive force to be reckoned with. Question is why? Well, very straightforwardly, two things happened. One, the internet and the pervasive reach of it, and it's all about cost of transfer of information. If one of us in this room was to try and tell every single person in this room what we're doing by walking from person to person, we'd be here for the next 3 weeks. And if you wanted to try and tell 500 people the same thing. The beauty of social media now is that we can talk about an idea and it spreads like wildfire, either virally or through actual very targeted initiatives. But as importantly, and this is where we've been held up in Africa, is through payment gateway systems. You've got to make it easy for people to actually contribute to campaigns. And that has been, even on ThunderFund, it's been one of our major bugbears. And I see the various people from ThunderFund smiling here because on ThunderFund we say, yes, we take credit cards. We do take credit cards. However, there's the occasional, actually fairly regular instance where people try and back a project from overseas and the overseas bank blocks their incoming payment. Why? Because they don't trust South African merchant services. So it's a major issue that we're still dealing with here in South Africa. And anyone who runs a platform like Jens over there from Shopstar will know that that kind of stuff is a real issue. But it's also then an opportunity. And what we're looking to do at ThunderFund is introduce the principle, and it looks to be part of our mantra, which is making it easy to ask and easy to give. If we can solve those two problems, then we'll make crowdfunding an even more powerful force in Africa. ThunderFund, presently, we're playing in two spaces. You've got donations-based crowdfunding, and then you've got rewards-based. ThunderFund is a rewards-based crowdfunding platform, very similar to Kickstarter and in some ways similar to Indiegogo. What we did not try to do with ThunderFund is reinvent the wheel. What we've looked to do is say, how can we make it a powerful force for change in South Africa and help startups raise the cash they need through rewards? The reason we started with rewards is when your idea is on a piece of paper, it's worth very little. When you've had POC, proof of concept, then suddenly it's worth a hell of a lot more, and you can sell it for a hell of a lot more or bring in investors. So that's why we looked and said, in terms of crowdfunding space, that's where we thought the most powerful force and the most powerful need is in South Africa. We're looking to go across Africa over the next couple of years, right now we're in the rebuild process, where initially we partnered to white label from an overseas platform. We are now building ThunderFund from the bottom up locally here in South Africa in partnership with a group called Information Logistics. So, yeah, thanks, Boo. It is. We want to build local, but we also recognize that don't reinvent the wheel if someone else has done it. Learn from them and then start building when it's the right time. And that's where we're at right now. We're also now running a platform called BackerBuddy. BackerBuddy is in the donation space. And that's because we really believe in the need for a cause and activism-based platform in South Africa. And you'll see a very cool campaign coming up through BackerBuddy called #FindTheFees, in response to fees must fall. You can Google that on the other side. What we are moving towards now, that's connecting the courageous with the curious, as you would say. I always tend to look at things sideways, and it's not just because I'm wearing glasses. Last Friday, we met with Carol De Silva and her team at the Financial Services Board, specifically to look at equity crowdfunding. Now, presently in South Africa, equity crowdfunding in concept is illegal. But what the FSB, Treasury, and the Reserve Bank are all looking to do is say, how can we promote the kind of crowdfunding impact that we've seen overseas with organizations like Crowdcube and Seeders and what's happened through the Jobs Act in the States? How can we introduce equity crowdfunding in South Africa to allow, as what Cyril Ramaphosa said, was a stock exchange for Soweto. That is the kind of thing that we can do. And what the FSB has said that they will be doing with us is they're putting together a multidisciplinary task team, and they're going to be identifying a couple of key organizations that are working within the equity crowdfunding space, Thunder Fund being one of them. And they're going to test it and see where it goes. And that's what's actually quite exciting, is that government is coming to the party to say, look, we know in terms of the structures that we have right now, it's not legal, but we also recognize the potential. And as a colleague and a gentleman we're working with said today when he was speaking to Carol De Silva from the FSB, they've gone through, they've read the reports of the impact of what's happening around the world in crowdfunding, and they're very excited to get involved in the space. Now that's a fantastic, let's say, a call to action from government side to say, let us get involved. So in the equity crowdfunding space, it's still very new. And in that area, if there's people in the space or you know of who might be interested in being involved in that initiative, let us know, because we'll be able to link you up. And then lastly, we'd like to announce tonight that as of today, the press release went out for the launch of the African Crowdfunding Association. Now that is bringing together over 31 crowdfunding platforms that are either up and running or in the process of getting established across Africa. It's an initiative that's been headed up by ourselves and an organization called Wealth Migrate. Wealth Migrate is in the realty crowdfunding space, and they really have been pushing it. So between us, we've said, surely at one stage or another, we need to bring together people all in the crowdfunding space to look at the regulations and the legislative environment to ensure that we really we are able to reach the kind of impact that crowdfunding can achieve. And you'll see over the next couple of weeks how that develops. And this is also one of the reasons that the FSB has engaged with us, is because they've said, look, when you get to the stage when you have an association, very much like Silicon Cape, then actually you can start, we can start engaging with you not on a one-on-one basis, but as an industry. And with that, I'd like to say, share, because what does they say? As a very interesting man said, Mugabe, the sun is rising in the east and setting in the west. Thanks very much.
Thanks so much, Patrick. Nkosi Kakulu. Okay, thank you so much. I very much appreciate that. And I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time doing introductions of our panel because I just want to get right to it. But what I will say is that my fellow Silicon Cape Exco committee member, Nevo Hadas, is going to run it. And we're going to call up 5 entrepreneurs who have used a lot of different smarts and innovative financing to get their businesses off the ground. So I'm just going to bring them on up now. Andre, Catherine, Josh, Juliet, and Jason. Thanks so much.
We're going to need more than one microphone for this thing. Yeah, get another. Actually, you know what? I'll stand. You sit. Go. You guys got enough chairs? Alrighty. No, I'll stand. I think it's much better if I stand. Then I can kind of step out the way.
You're the one who has to keep the energy level up.
Yeah, exactly. And I get the microphone, so it's like the talking stick. So, hi, everyone. Thanks very much for coming. I think everyone's heard all those kind of great Silicon Valley stories about, a company, 2 people in a garage. Kind of, they have a great idea, they go to them, like find a VC, before they know it, they have like $100 million, and it's all happiness and just kind of straight up, which I don't think is really the truth of what happens. So I'm going to open up straight up to the panel, and what I want you guys each to do is just introduce yourself, a couple of short sentences about your businesses, and kind of succinctly put your fundraising story and just kind of how you got your business started and how you got going, or, you know, I think, except for the lawyer, which probably is a very different kind of business, but you can just maybe introduce yourselves and what you guys do. Cool.
In how much time do I have? Okay, I have to keep that in mind. I'm Joshua Shimkin. I co-founded FitKey with my business partner, Evan Walther, who I'm sure some of you know. It's one membership that lets you reserve spots at fitness studios and gyms all throughout South Africa. So rather than having one contract, or having 4 contracts at 4 different kinds of studios, you can have one contract. You pay us, and we pay the studios for you. It's called FitKey, okay, fitkey.coza. So how did we do this? So we wanted to save time, right? That is my, if I impart one piece of entrepreneurial wisdom about a safe, and why I have found it to be so valuable, is it saved us so much time when it was just me and Evan sitting in front of our computers, you know, desperately just trying to make this thing work. And we didn't have to, so we've probably talked to 50 investors at this point, and we started in May of this year. And every conversation leads to a point about evaluation or trying to make assumptions about the business model, and you have long, long conversations about that. By using the safe, it really let us just focus on getting the capital we needed to launch the business.
So I think let's just explain what a safe is.
Oh, okay. Well, let me hand the mic to my lawyer. Surely she is actually my lawyer. So let her describe it, because I will butcher it a little bit.
All right, so should I introduce myself now? I'll make it quick. Okay, I'm Juliet. I work at a legal commercial consultancy called Bannister Law, which I founded together with my business partner, Shelley, about 2 years ago. So we like to think of ourselves as a startup, maybe not a tech startup, but we like to speak the same language as startups. We work with a lot of startups, find them very exciting, innovative, and dynamic. And I suppose bit of a buzz concept that's really started gaining traction in the last, I don't know, a couple of years, even few months, I would say, is the concept of a SAFE, which is a simple agreement for future equity. And essentially what it is an investor paying a startup money in exchange for a future right to subscribe for equity in the company when a, I suppose, major finance round happens, essentially. Yeah, a liquidity event, which I suppose we can get into later. Yeah.
Okay, back to the story. So we because we had, it's like 5 pages, right? Because it was so simple, it was really easy for us to say, listen, this is what we need to get the funding quickly, and it let the discussion about the valuations and all the different deal sheet terms that you're going to see that every larger investor will have and needs to have. It just deferred that conversation until we really knew that there was a business there to be spending that time on, right? Because every time I had those conversations, I go to Juliet and I'd say, Juliet, what do you think of these deal terms? And she'd come back and say, well, this is wrong, and I don't know if I like that. And now suddenly, Evan and I are spending time talking to Juliet about that and not running the business. And so that is why the SAFE was so important to us. I can talk very loudly, too. I'm very used to doing that as well. I'm really not touching it, by the way. So that's why it was really important to us, and everyone should just take a read about it. Juliet has a great description of a SAFE on her website, which is bannisterlegal.coza. Okay. So it's excellent. It's really short, and it really describes it very, very well. So that is FitKey's story.
Hi. Nice to see you all tonight. My name is Andre de Wet. I'm the ex-CEO of PriceCheck, so I'm jobless right now.
All right, yeah. That means you're an entrepreneur.
As an entrepreneur, that's the stuff that you do. Is your whole purpose of existence is to get jobless. It's the most fantastic thing in the world. I'm going to touch on a few areas, guys. I've walked the path quite a while. My first fundraising, I was thinking about it just before we got to this, was in 99. Or was it before? No, 99. Just when the first bubble started. We didn't have email, we didn't have anything else, it was talking to people. The next one was in 2004, that was in the UK, raised about £4 million on that one, it was for a sale of a business. And then 2008, out of the UK, raised 3 million rand on a payments platform. And then I did the most traditional and classic way of getting money, is through a corporate. And that's how PriceCheck was. I joined Naspers actually, and then Naspers had bought PriceCheck, and then we took it over and built it and, through that. I think through the discussion this evening, what will come through are some really interesting and innovative ways of funding. One thing I'd like to leave you with at this point in time is first develop a good Thanks. Let me try this one. Guys, first develop a good product. And the other thing is money is not raised in a coffee shop. It's raised out there by selling really good products and solving a solution. We're all caught up in the Silicon Valley. Everything will get funded. Seriously, it's easy to find money. I've been to San Francisco 2 or 3 times over here as well. It's really easy to find money if you have a good product. I'll leave you with that one for now.
Thank you very much. I'm going to lead on from that and say you raise partners, not money. And that's really key. So, and I say that from running my own business. This is my 3rd. I was involved in another startup in between somewhere that actually got funded by a mid-year and Google Ventures. And actually we went through a lot of due diligence with Intel Capital and a number of others. I should probably say my name. It would be a good start. So I'm Catherine Lookoff. I run a company called Nishstream. We've built a music streaming platform, and our first stream is called Likkie. So if you're Afrikaans, that would make sense. If you're not, that means song.com in Afrikaans, in English. And really what we've looked at is the DSTV models. So if you're not into all-you-can-eat music streaming services, you land on Deezer or RDO, or lucky enough to land on Spotify, and you happen to really love Afrikaans music, you can't find the depth and breadth that you're looking for. So we're basically building Kykenet of DSTV, if that makes sense, but for music. And so from this point, we've built an entire backend, which is a streaming service. And off the back of that, we will start curating and branding and building specific streaming services aimed at people who want to pay $4 to $5 or less, and who are only interested in a specific genre of music. So if you're a metalhead, you dress like a metalhead, you look like a metalhead, you probably follow particular brands, and you're really not interested in what Beyonce's just dropped on iTunes. So very similar to that, we've looked at specific audiences, specific content, curated at kind of a cultural nuance level. So we have playlists on Likkie for braai and sokkiejol and goue oues and langpad and everything else, and this is a proof of concept for us. So the progression from here is we've been approached to launch a Persian music stream. There are about 126 million Farsi speakers outside of Iran. We're looking at a Nigerian gospel music stream, 85 million Christians in Nigeria who simply do not have access to Nigerian gospel music. And others include sertanejo music in Brazil, and there are a number of services out there like Saven and KK Box, etc., that look at Taiwan and Bollywood at a regional level. And we really believe that there's a touch point between where music and culture are very intrinsically linked. So if we get Victor Matfield to curate your rugby playlist, next time you're braaiing on a Saturday, you may just turn it on. So at $49.99, we're offering niche music streaming services. We funded it by really fools, family, and friends, my dad being the first. And we raised our angel round in 5 days. We went a bit of a different route to Josh, which is that we looked at specifically a priced round. So we pegged the valuation up front, hoped people would go for it. They did. 5 days later, we closed the round and we started building. And so I was a little vocal earlier about timeframes. But I think that startups in our space need to move really quickly. And we started in March, and by September, our first stream was up and running. And we've unfortunately been hampered by label agreements with Sony and Universal and those guys who the analogy always uses is moving a dinosaur 1 centimeter to the left, because these guys have no idea of timeframes. Like 3 weeks is perfectly acceptable to respond to a contract. But we're launching on Monday, and we're really excited. And so for us, it's been about looking at who are the partners that can help us grow, who believe in us from the get-go, We then raised, the mistake we made actually was undercapitalizing from the get-go, which is, I think, a really key lesson. You know, we thought we knew what it cost to build a music streaming service. We had no idea. So we had to raise a bridge round. And now we've actually managed to secure a deal where we have a brand partner who's buying 45,000 subscriber months from us up front. And we hope to use that money to launch, and then, you know, from Monday onwards, and over a course of 3 months show traction, and then raise offer really good valuation, substantial money to launch into our next stream. And that's what I do.
You're done? Okay. Hi, my name is Jason Siv. The slide here says of MobiCred, but I'm going to take you slightly further back. So MobiCred essentially is an online lending business that finances purchases in the e-commerce environment. So basically it allows a customer to go into a e-commerce website and finance a purchase real time at checkout, and then use that facility across, I think we have about 250 other merchants that are live right now, and we've got about 20 to 30 new merchants going live every single month. But I'm going to take you a bit further back. I've been in banking and lending pretty much my whole life. I was in Australia for a while, came back here and got into breast augmentation. How do I go from banking to breast augmentation? Because I came back from Australia and I saw, what's the matter, Andre? You don't join the dots? Do you? You know? Yeah, okay. Stick with me. Just stick with me. It's in the B's. B's and C's and full D's. So no, I came back from Australia, and what I saw was that over here there were certain elements of the medical industry that weren't funded by medical aids, and there was an opportunity for niche kind of funding. So I wanted to start a finance business to finance all medical procedures that weren't covered by medical aids, which had been proven in Canada, Europe, North America, Australia, etc., but hadn't been done in South Africa. Looked around, went through the normal channels of trying to raise money, and then thought, like, stuff this, let's just chuck some money at it, and got 3 private investors to sit with me and got a partner involved, and we actually decided the only way to get this going and to raise real money was to show that we had put in enough of our own money to prove concept fairly quickly without, obviously in that space there's no major technology development. Prove concept, once you've proved concept and there's enough money in the business to go and raise money from a hedge fund or third-party financier. And we did that across 2 or 3 different types of finance businesses. So to be honest with you, MobiCred isn't an amazing story of running around and raising a huge amount of money at some ridiculous valuation in the same way that goes on quite commonly in this tech space. We did it as a lender in the tech space, as opposed to a tech company who happens to be in lending. And there's quite a fundamental difference between the two. And to be honest with you, depending on where a market is within its maturity stage and its investors' appetite and its kind of the maturity of funders, you have to determine the type of funding you raise based on the market that you're in. And the equivalent of MobiCred happens to also be a guy in Sydney, Australia, who I know from when I lived there. He's running the equivalent business of MobiCred in Australia. He's just raised $100 million from Victory Park Capital in the US. And it's a 2-year-old business. Yes, the market's different and it's more mature and there are more users, etc. But he was able to position that business as a tech business that happens to do some lending, where we're actually a lending business right now that happens to be in the tech space. So I think the one thing I've learned is that you need to really be quite clear on your position in the market and where the market is in terms of its funding maturity and the maturity of the investors. Because if we had to go out and try and say, oh, put a valuation of MobiCred right now because we're this and we're that and we're in this space, etc., go raise money, guys would absolutely crap themselves. They'd say, nah, if you run, you're going to need more money. We're not going to fund it. Where are you going to get the money from? So we had to actually prove concept and do it properly ourselves. And we're almost at the stage of getting to kind of the big money requirements, but we've done okay up to now on our own.
Cool, thanks. So an interesting question here. So we've heard like the traditional kind of go out, find somebody, get cash, start a business. And I think your guys' model is interesting, kind of co-invest in the business, get it to a certain point, and you're running a loan book, which is a very different kind of mathematical model. Any other type of funding that you guys have done? Vendor finance, you know, you were speaking about the deal that you did, which was basically pre-booking revenues with a large customer, potential customer. Anything else that you guys have seen that has been an interesting way to fund a business?
A very traditional one that we used in one business was, and I mean, you know, this is invoice financing. Really works. And, you know, it gets back to the thing of get out there and sell your product. If you can get invoicing done, there's a tremendous amount of scope on that. And a lot of players starting to act in that, guys in America and in your arena. Guys we're also speaking to in the UK currently that is doing that. They're starting to play the middleware to take a look at it. Invoice funding works very well. Is create some traction. There's somebody that's going to take a look and see that it works. And then the crowdfunding one, of course, I really like. I have kind of a passion for that.
No, is it?
I disagree.
Yeah?
I've seen, well, it occurred to me when you were talking, Mark Cuban about a year ago said he wanted any business who was generating revenue and didn't have not enough capital to serve that client base to send him their business proposal immediately, right now. And I think he funded like 30 businesses within a couple months. And it just follows from the exactly same point you said.
So you're saying anything that's revenue-wise is fundable, but the reason is like, do you always need to take funding, right? So we always look at investors and third-party equity partners as somebody that you want to bring onto your business, but why? You know, I mean, if you're profitable already, why do it? I like the kind of...
I'll just say the key word you just said were equity partners, right? So I don't have any equity partners yet. And that's the difference between a SAFE and what I think everybody else has done here. But I don't want to, if you...
No, please.
Well, so, okay, so key thing is with the SAFE that everybody on a SAFE is invested on really it's a warrant or an option to get equity later, right? So Evan and I still own technically 100% of the business. We haven't given out any equity, although we've taken an investment on a SAFE and given these investors an option to get equity later when we have this liquidity event, right? Which is a myriad of things that are well defined but have no maturity date, right? Technically, there is no time at which we need to say, all right, it's time to give you equity. Evan and I, as the owners of the company, get to decide when that happens. And it is a leap of faith, right? This is a lottery ticket, okay? If you're doing angel investing, you're buying into a lottery, right? And if you're not okay with that, don't do it, right? So Justin Stanford invested in us. I don't know how many people know about him. Elizabeth mentioned him at the beginning. He started Silicon Cape with Vinny. He's an angel investor, very well known in the Cape Town community. And you know, he's a guy who understands what the lottery ticket is that we all do right now. Most people don't and shouldn't take that risk. So all the different investment vehicles you're hearing here have a different gauge of risk associated with them. Mine is probably the most risky, except for yours, frankly, because you just had, I mean, I actually don't know what kind of paper people signed for yours, but it just sounded like people throwing in some money, which is even a little riskier than what a SAFE was. Yeah.
There's a different way also of playing this game, and you flip this coin right on its head. And this is something that I picked up quite a few years ago, and we used it with one of the fundraised. You've got to play around with it if you follow this formula of seed and then a little bit more and then series A and B and whatever, you know, go down the alphabet. There's a different way of flipping it as well, and this is based on your belief in your product. We raised 3 million in 2008 based on this angle around it is we went to the investor and we said, what you need to do is you give us the money, we will give you 75% of the equity in the business. Okay? If we get to our figures and our results after a certain time period, we get 50% of the equity back. So suddenly, that guy is very comfortable because he's got all the equity. There's a criteria for you to reach something, so you have a motivator. You don't go and sit in coffee shops and spend money on Ferraris. I was speaking to somebody yesterday, and they were saying, no, this morning actually, and he was saying that people raise Series B and C, and they're like, yay, we have to celebrate. He's like, no, dude, now you got to work. Because you've got more people to pay back. And so flipping this thing on its head is a very interesting line of thought, and funders like this. By saying, you know what, if either we raise a next raise of funding, or we reach 100,000 clients in the next 2 years, when we get that, we take back 50% of the equity, or however you want to flip it. The funder then gets 20 or 15 or 10 or 2% of the business. He's got all his money back, and that suddenly makes sense. Don't ever forget with this funding exercise that we're just people doing business with each other. We mustn't get too sucked up in all kinds of weird and wonderful terms and stuff. So keep this one in mind as well. It's a different kettle of fish.
I was going to add another point to this. Listening to the different businesses and experience on the panel, if you don't, you should. There's a guy called Pascal Fenet who heads up the entrepreneurship division of Singularity University in Silicon Valley. He has this amazing daily post he sends out, and at the end of it, you know, every single day he shares something around a talk they had at Singularity or a thought he had, and I'm always amazed that he actually finds the time to write something that is so insightful and really adds value. It's probably the only newsletter I've never unsubscribed to. And he has a line at the end that says, if you have a comment or a question or you just want to say hi, hit reply. And I did one day. I said, I'm going to be in Silicon Valley. Can I come hang out with you? And he went, sure. So there I am on kind of NASA campus, looking at Hangar 1, talking to someone I completely, probably for the first time in my life, lost the ability to speak. And he recently wrote this post of how startups get so attached to, not just startups, but the founders in businesses get so attached to raising money. It becomes this drug of like, oh, I've raised so much, and you know, we just went into our next round. And I think the thing that we lose sight of is, does your business actually need money, or could you just really wing it for a few months and get by? And it seems to be the status symbol that you've raised. And so I'm going to flip this on its head. Sorry, probably not the topic, but you know, we happen to be in a business where I'm dealing with Universal Music and Sony, and these guys are asking more money than I could ever fathom pulling together. But the reality is, you know, I've gone through months of not paying salaries or myself or putting everything I own into it. And I'd rather do that than give up equity. And you should only raise money, whatever that format would be, because you have no other option. And then it should be that you give all you have because you believe enough in it. And I wanted to just raise that because I think that we all have this overinflated idea of like, oh, I gave away 35% of my business, but I raised X. Yeah, you gave away 35% of your business. You do, but there are many people who end up with businesses without having to give away 35%. And it depends on the business. And that's all I'm trying to say, is that not every startup requires equity funding or a safe or any of that, and I wanted to throw that in the mix.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's very true. Yeah. Cool. And actually, guys, maybe closing comments from you, because I think we've hit 8 o'clock, which is our.
Is that cut off? Okay. So I mean, just the one thing I'll put out there is that, and again, just from the niche that I operate in the lending space, the lending space to people in non-banking, non-lending is quite an intimidating space because things can go wrong, very quickly, to put it that way. You have risk models, you have underwriting, you have credit and fraud, etc. And if you don't know what you're doing, you can come short very quickly. So guys that are outside the lending space, we just kind of, it's almost like you don't go to them to raise money, because if they don't understand it, they're going to be terrified. And the one thing that you should do, and I think, Catherine, you made the point about don't raise money, raise partners, yeah? Stick to people who understand the game that you're in, because there's generally going to be a better chance of them getting it. You get it, of course you get it. It's your product, it's your startup, it's your fancy idea. But for them, they're not going to see all the fancy rainbows and the chest of treasure at the end of the rainbow like you, because to them this is out of their space. If you get guys that are in that space already, and they understand it, and maybe it's a slight diversion to what they normally do, but they generally in the space, or they've got experience in the space, you have a much better chance of getting them to buy into your dream and your idea. And also, once the thing gets going, you have real gray hair, guys with experience in that space, and it's all cool coming up with an idea of getting a business going. Once things get big and you're running a proper business, it's not only about the idea, it's about the admin and the finance and the HR and all the other stuff that goes with running a big business. And there's no substitute for experience there. So find guys that are in your space that can help you, and they're not just providing funding, they're there to actually help you and support you in the business.
Can I say something quickly? Basically, just if anyone wants to come chat to either Josh or I about SAFE and how it is, I mean, a lot of people haven't even heard of it, people don't understand it, then come chat to me afterwards.
And I'm going to tell you to talk to her.
If you have a good product, you will find the money.
I like it.
All right. Thank you all so much. I really appreciate it. I just wanted to close up real quick. Go ahead. It's fine. Thanks. I just wanted to say thank you to all of you for coming. Thanks to Workshop 17, the Waterfront, the Open, our wine sponsor for the evening. As some of you know, I just want to say that we are really working on building a great tech ecosystem here at Workshop 17. Silicon Cape is based here, Codex is based here, our partner MLab is based here, and MLab is looking for a community manager right now. So I'm going to throw it out here to you to, if you're interested, go to mlab.coza and get involved with us in building the tech ecosystem that we have here at Silicon Cape and at Workshop 17. Thanks so much. Everybody's going to stay around a bit for some drinks. And so if you have more questions about some of the stuff that you've heard tonight, please talk to the guys who have been here. Thanks again.